The Mini Cooper is all new for 2025, and in this video I'm going to cover the exterior changes, the interior changes, take it for a drive and see what it's like out on the road, as well as talking about the kind of fuel economy you can expect and also the pricing and how it compares to the competition these days. And so as far as this all new 4th generation of the Cooper S, well, I'm just really happy we have a new generation of this car. Obviously not a high volume seller here in the States especially, but I'm just thankful we have it here, and I think it's a really nice evolutionary change here for 2025. So as far as dimensional changes, it's 0.7 inches longer, wider, and taller, but the wheelbase is the same. But you know, so under an inch difference as far as all directions, and I think that's really good because it means that, you know, it's maybe a tiny bit more roomy, they say, but you know, really it's just sticking to the same small proportions. Obviously there's a zillion options if you want something with more space. This is about, you know, again, keeping that small size, which is really rare these days, and I love it for it. And so right up front there you have those new sharp LED headlights that have a redesign to them and also can change to a few different designs. This one also has the John Cooper Works Style package, not a John Cooper Works, that is available you know, for an upcharge for that higher trim if you'd like, but this one just gives you that appearance package with that much more aggressive front bumper, which is a really huge change over the regular Cooper S. So honestly, this package is only $1,200, well worth getting, I think, because it gives you that. It also gives you some nicer 18-inch wheels here with some sportier brake calipers there behind it. You also have the black accents as far as like the mini badge there. You get the black mirror caps, the black roof, and then going out to the back here of the Cooper S, you will see you have that more aggressive spoiler there on the back. You also have the more aggressive rear diffuser and those new taillights, which again can also customize their lighting signatures as well, on the nice large Cooper S script there on the back. And I love the way they redesigned this thing. Again, I just think they made it, you know, modern and changed it just enough so you know it's the new one, but not so much that it gave up the essence of what is a Mini Cooper, at least in my opinion. And so yeah, I think from every single angle, it's really cool looking. I also love they're still offering lots of fun colors. Obviously this one in white, you know, doesn't really do that justice, but there's basically every color of the rainbow you can get for these. I love that they're still having that boldness to offer that, and it's just so fun. The interior is arguably the biggest change here of the Mini, and it is quite unique, and there's some really good components here in my opinion and some bad ones as well. So obviously you can see the dashboard, there's no gauge cluster anymore. We have this very cool round OLED 9.4-inch touchscreen, which I'll get into more in a minute. And then here for the John Cooper Works Style package, you get that cool checker mark there on the passenger side dashboard, which is actually illuminated at night. A very cool little touch. You also, the main two things here on the inside for the John Cooper Works is you get a unique steering wheel and unique seats. And so starting off with the seats here and this John Cooper Works Style version, they are really cool seats. So they have really aggressive bolstering to them, but it holds you in nicely, and they are still comfortable seats, thankfully. And they have memory adjustments here, at least again this top iconic trim, and they have also a massage function, which is unexpected, and not sure how many Mini owners are requesting that in a little Cooper, but you have that here now. And just, you know, really cool seats though. I haven't tried the regular you know, non-JCW seats to see what they're like, but these ones are really good. These are also heated seats, but unfortunately we don't have any ventilation in them, no matter how much you pay for a Cooper. So, but anyway, still great seats. The steering wheel though is comical. So, I mean, the strap at the bottom here is cool, and it's just that it's too thick. This is the thickest steering wheel. I don't even think like a BMW M5 has a steering wheel this thick. I mean, it is nuts. You know, so I mean, it has a good 9.3 grip, but I mean, it is a handful. And then the 10.2 notches, I almost can't reach my fingers all the way around them. They are, I think I'm actually comfortable saying these are the largest 10.2 notches I have ever experienced in a car. Supercars, you know, anything you can think of, nothing has notches that big. It's kind of comical and bizarre, honestly, but yeah, that's what you get with the John Cooper Works wheel. Now, all steering wheels in the Cooper S here are heated, so that's certainly nice. Now, the John Cooper Works wheel is the only way you get paddle shifters, crazy enough, and there is no way to change your own gears if you don't get the John Cooper Works steering wheel, which is kind of crazy for a Cooper, and it adds insult to injury considering we don't have a manual option anymore, and there's no way to even change the automatic gears unless you have these paddle shifters here on this. So it's you're forced to make a choice. You either deal with this comically thick steering wheel, or you don't ever change your own gears. And it's a dual clutch automatic, so it should be decent. We'll try that out once we're out on the road, but I don't love that they force people to make those choices. And, you know, otherwise the steering wheel's nice though, and so no other complaints there. Another thing, though, that I don't love the choice of was the fact they got rid of the gauge cluster altogether. Now, you still have a head-up display, which, you know, effectively gives you most of the same information you had with the gauge cluster previously. You know, it shows you your speed, your fuel, and your power gauge, but there is no tach there, which I really miss, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But, you know, the problem is it's a little plexiglass display still, and, I mean, everything else, I think, in the industry these days has a regular projector onto the windshield, including BMW. I don't know why they put that. It's just, it's so heavily tinted, and it feels like you're looking through a pair of sunglasses that are at the very end of your nose or something whenever you're, you know, having that up. But that's your only choice. You either deal with that head-up display, you know, being annoying, or you just have nothing in front of you. And I've only driven this vehicle a few miles so far, so I'm not sure which I prefer, but I don't, again, love that choice either. But coming over to the middle here, again, the main thing is this 9.4-inch round OLED screen, and I love, it's probably the thinnest bezels in the industry. It's really impressive. I mean, there's hardly any back to it. It's so thin, which you often don't see on anything else in the automotive space either. One of the coolest screens in the auto industry right now, and so I really like that. Now, software-wise, it's pretty good. So there's a bunch of different things to it, and because it's BMW-based, it can get a little overcomplicated, and there's some head-scratchers here as far as choices as well, I think. The one thing that I don't love is that it's a little fickle with the swipes, and I have to really exaggerate my swipes or nail it just perfectly to do exactly what it wants me to do. It's not quite as receptive to those swipes as I would like. Otherwise, though, you know, other people complain also about Apple CarPlay being this square display, but because you have that speed right at the top all the time and all the other stuff that's needed, I don't think there's really much room to expand out that display anyway. Yeah, I wouldn't want it to take up the entire round circle because then you lose the speedometer and everything. So I think that's about as good as you can expect. And I just like that we still, of course, have wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto as standard. And by the way, this screen is standard. There's a ton of standard stuff. So heated steering wheel standard, heated seat standard, this screen standard, panoramic moonroof standard. A lot of really nice stuff here. But anyway, so other things, you know, like going into, for example, your radio and tuning that can be kind of confusing as far as, I mean, once you have all your favorites saved, it should be a non-issue, but just, you know, overly weird, just like not straightforward. I just want to have like my row of 6 favorites. I want to have, you know, a simple toggle and that's it. There's no tuning knob or anything. You do think we have a volume knob, and I guess you can rock this back and forth to, you know, tune that way if you want, but just kind of weird as far as that goes. Now, thankfully, there are also a bunch of different ways to customize this display, and I do really love how fun that is. So it's all tied into the experiences, which are the drive modes, but a lot of them just look different and they don't actually change the driving dynamics themselves. But you know, there's the green one there, and they all have their fun little sounds that they make whenever you switch to them. And there's, you know, just a variety to pick from. There's also, you can customize it so you have like a picture as your background. You can like upload your own picture to put on the screen here of whatever you want to have on there. I mean, you can really customize a lot, and that is really cool that they provide so much customization, and that's something we don't see a whole lot of in the auto industry, and I welcome that, and I think that's something hopefully others copy of, like, why can't you have whatever you want for the background on your infotainment screen? Why can't you have whatever colors you want? There shouldn't be any restrictions, and I like that Mini is kind of pioneering this, and so that's really good. Also, this screen is hooked up to this Harman Kardon surround sound stereo in this top iconic trim with all the packages on it and stuff that it has, and it's a really good sounding stereo so far. I'm going to need a little more time to, you know, try it out, but the only thing is the surround effect can sometimes be a little strange, in my opinion, on certain songs. Other than that, you can turn that off if you want, but other than that, a really good sounding stereo here as well. But thankfully, you know, stuff like changing your climate control is nice and easy. You know, it's just 2 taps to turn on your heated steering wheel. And, you know, everything is very responsive and snappy as far as that goes. So I think the software is pretty well done. I think with a few tweaks like the radio, you know, screen and a couple of the little things, I think it would be pretty good. But overall, not bad for, again, first model year, first iteration. This screen also is available to get over-the-air updates, so you can have, software updates that get patched in from time to time to make the experience even better, and that's certainly appreciated as well. Coming down, you have this little gear selector, and then you have a fun little twist to start the engine. I appreciate that. That is cool. Obviously you don't have any key anymore. It's all, just a fob. And so that's fun to have that little twist there. Just a little old-fashioned nod, especially whenever you're using the timeless look, which is old-timey as well, and one of my favorite ones to drive around in. And then just that experiences knob there and the volume knob. There's a couple little buttons here beneath that. There's quick access to the 360 camera, which is appreciated. Moving down, you have a wireless phone charger. It's a huge mat. I feel like you could wirelessly charge an iPad down here or something. It's so big. So that's, an interesting choice, but should work well. You also have two cup holders, and then you have this bin that's smack dab in the middle of this whole area that, they sacrificed not having a shifter so that you could open this area up, and then they just put this odd bin in the middle of it. You can't remove the bin, you can't slide it, and I think one or both of those things would be nice so that you can make this as usable as you want it to be, because behind the cup holders here, you have this little area that's not really usable for much, and then you have another little area that's also not usable for much, and if you were to slide this one way or the other, you could open up more space for larger items. So that's just another head scratcher to me as well. You have in that area also a regular power outlet and two USB-C jacks. Another head scratcher though is you have a center armrest that is nice and softly padded, but you can't open it up. And surely this must be hollow in here. I don't know why they didn't want to bother putting a hinge on this. I've tried squeezing and pulling this every way I can, and I don't think there's a way to open this up. And so it's another strange thing, like especially a car like this where, again, storage space is at a premium. Why do you not have an opening center armrest? That just seems, again, really strange. You also, in the doors here, you have a pocket, which is square shaped. I guess, obviously you could fit a bottle in there, but it's kind of a far reach. And again, maybe they're just confined with space restrictions as far as that one goes, but another odd little choice there. But it's not ideal. I think, I'd like to change a few things in here, but overall, it's still a cool interior. I do like all the cloth you have here on the doors. Now, there are some, harder plastics and things that feel a little cheap in here, especially considering this car's price tag of almost $40,000. But it's not bad. And, Minis have always kind of, given you a somewhat premium feel, but not obviously full-blown BMW or anything. So I guess this fits. You do also have, like some soft padding down by your elbows and stuff. So, not too bad there, but don't expect this to be super plush feeling in here either. Now, moving on to the back seat very briefly in the Cooper S here. Obviously, if you want the most backseat space, you should get the 4-door version, which is still available for this new generation as well. It's not going to be a huge backseat in that either, but certainly better than this. So I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself. I fit with my legs off to the sides there. I wouldn't say that's comfortable. I could, deal for a little while, but I don't think I'd want to sit back there for an extended period of time for sure. Thankfully, there is a good amount of headroom thanks to the nice boxy shape we still have here with these. They do have a cup holder there as well, but that's about it. But, it works in a pinch for sure. And cargo space also, predictably pretty small. It's about as much as you would expect out of something like this. Again, since it hasn't grown, expect about the same amount of space as you got in the old Cooper. Now, beneath the floor, there is an extra little cubby there, so that is certainly, a nice little touch. But yeah, obviously, again, not a lot of space. And that is an area where some of the more practical competitors, even like a Volkswagen GTI, has a much bigger hatch than this. So just be prepared for that. But again, the charm of this vehicle is its small size, so I think everyone should be totally fine with that. And those seats do fold flat back there if you want more space too. But let's start up and go for a drive. Another hilarious choice is the Mini. Keyword Mini has, I think, the largest key I've seen in the industry for 2025. It's definitely the longest key for sure. Probably, one of the thicker and wider ones as well. A huge key for a tiny car. Have that make sense? I don't know, but I certainly miss the round little keys you used to pop into the R56s and the R53s back in the day. This is just enormous, and there's just a few buttons there on it. There's no good reason why this key's this big. I think even a BMW key is smaller. So again, I would love to ask a bunch of questions as far as the design choices for this car. But anyway, of course, it's keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the or twist the engine start knob here, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off here in the 2025 Cooper S. So the first thing you noticed about this vehicle, I think the first thing that I noticed about it was just how low you sit in this. You can get nice and low. I have the seat as low as it'll go here. And, you know, you still have a good view out though, thankfully, you know, as long as you don't mind, again, that head-up display. Thankfully, just a nice thin A-pillar, you know, nice large side mirrors here. View out of the back is good. And so nice and easy. And of course, again, you also have the 360 camera here on the upper trims, which, you know, really helps. I mean, it's a small car, but, you know, really helps with your precision there for parallel parking or whatever. It also does have the auto park function here in these top trims as well with this package it has on it. And other things here to notice about it. So I think one thing I'll just get right out of the way immediately is there's no actual numerical tack. There are power modes, and it, you know, shows you RPM whenever you're in the go-kart mode, but there's no numerical how many RPMs am I currently doing. And maybe that's irrelevant to people, I don't know, but this is the first car, and certainly the first sporty car, but even non-sporty stuff, I can always see my RPM. I can't see it in this, and it's another one of these head-scratching decisions. Why not have a numerical bar with little notches or some kind of gauge? It also seems to strangely vary depending on, you know, throttle position and stuff. So the power mode isn't just attack either in most settings. So it's just kind of this weird, vague gauge. And again, for a car like this, it's just not acceptable in my opinion. Just not acceptable. Other things though, throttle response is quite good. I do really appreciate that. Brakes also have a good amount of bite right towards the top of the pedal. Not quite as sensitive as the average BMW though in my experience. It's a little more lax, which I actually appreciate, so it's not quite as much of a shin workout, and not as much of a learning curve either compared to other cars out there. And so, yeah, and feels nice and punchy, you know, at lower speeds here. Pretty quiet and refined, although apparently interior noise is about the same as before, but you know, still very refined in my opinion, and, you know, totally good. But we're gonna go ahead and go up into the go-kart mode, which forces you to say activate go-kart because it turns off the DSC, so you have to hit that. And it gives you like a Mario Kart style sound there, which is fun. If you also want to just quickly do like a burst of power or a launch mode, you can also pull the left paddle here on the steering wheel for an extended pull, and then that will give you 10 seconds of the maximum performance settings. If you want to just do a pass, or you just need to quickly, you know, have some aggression, you can do that without fiddling with the drive modes. But anyway, let's turn down onto this back road here and see how this accelerates. Here we go. Wheel spin, wow, you can feel the torque steer. Man, you feel a lot of torque steer. It's quick though. This feels faster than the numbers suggest, and having all the gauges do their fun little thing here is cool, and showing you, at least you get a numerical readout for your horsepower and torque. Funny enough. But anyway, speaking of horsepower and torque, so we have the 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder here in the Cooper S, and it does 201 horsepower now, 221 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 officially is claimed by Mini at 6.3 seconds. Car and Driver, I believe, got like 5.8, 5.9 seconds. So, you know, a good amount of punch here. And so, I mean, you know, BMW often does underrate stuff, so I am tempted to hazard a guess that this is doing more than that horsepower. Now, if you do want even more horsepower, you can also get the John Cooper Works version. That does 221 horsepower, so 20 more for that, and the other, you know, little enhancements to the John Cooper Works. But honestly, this is a good amount of power here. I have no complaints really with that. And it's also worth noting, I just had the transmission in its regular drive mode. There is still a sport mode in typical BMW fashion for the transmission as well. So I put that into that mode. I'm gonna go ahead and do manual shifting here though, which strangely, that's another odd choice. I can only see my gear, what gear I'm in the center screen. I have the head-up display on, and that does give you some sportier looks here for that, you know, for this go-kart mode, but it doesn't show me the gear I'm in. You would think having the gear indicated in the head-up display would be important. I think BMWs offer that. No such luck here. So I'll have to be looking over to the middle here to see the gear I'm in. I can just pay attention as well, but it's just kind of a strange thing once again. But anyway, so I am in first gear and do some little bit of roughness from the start there, surprisingly, but okay, so pretty good, pretty quick. It's also worth noting this go-kart mode does give you a louder exhaust, so it does open up the exhaust a little bit. And I think it also does a little bit of maybe stereo assistance as well here. But it is actually, I think, opening up the actual exhaust there as well. But no crackles or pops yet from the exhaust. I was hoping we get a little bit of that here. But anyway, we're coming some corners here that I always take. Let's see how the Cooper S handles. So these are supposed to come with summer tires when you go for the John Cooper Works Style package. This one, strangely though, has touring all-season tires. I'm not sure, you know, what's going on with this press car in particular, but you should have summer tires. But I'm not going to be the best judge of handling here as a result because, again, we just have some more relaxed tires here. But it's nice and flat. Wow, it is really fun. That felt really good. I got a car turning off so we can do another acceleration here. I like, you do get shift lights in the head-up display at least, so that's appreciated. Warning you when to upshift at least. This feels very dynamic though. Now it did gain a little bit of weight. We are just under 3,000 pounds now, 2,991 pounds, which depending on where you're comparing is anywhere around 200 or less pounds of weight increase compared to the last generation. Not ideal, obviously, especially for a vehicle like this where weight is very important to people, but you know, it didn't feel like it was holding me back whatsoever there. And you also do have adaptive dampers, so they get a little firmer here. Ride quality in general in these so far, it seems fine. Obviously, you know, it's a little sporty, a little firm, but, you know, totally fine in my opinion here. But we're gonna do another acceleration here. Man, the torque steer, I haven't felt torque steer like that since probably, I think Focus ST was the last thing I experienced with that much torque steer. Honestly, this might even be more than that. This is more than even like Civic Type R, you know, with that putting over 300 horsepower through the front wheels. This has more torque steer than that. It's fun though, so you know, it's one of these things these days. At least it gives you engagement. It's fun. In the past it would have been judged as being, you know, unrefined or whatever, but these days I think it's fun. And it does a good job putting the power down. It is really a car you can still really tear up a back road in. And I love also steering, even in go-kart mode here, is light, but it's sharp and it's quick. And so I really love it. Instead of having overly heavy steering, this instead really is very, again, just eager to turn it. It's so flat though too. I've been so impressed with that. Just, wow, it moves. That was, it must be the tires, because that was a lot of, little bit of sliding I was doing there, just turning in. So, I don't know, maybe the way to do this is to not have the summer tires, because this feels definitely like it's more active and more lively here on these all-season tires. So, anyway, that was a lot of fun. It was still a lot of fun, even though I didn't know my actual RPM, and even though I, you know, had to pay attention to what gear I was in on the screen there and stuff. Minor quirks aside, I'm still having a good time, and that's, I think, the bottom line. And I think that's really the most redeeming quality of the Mini. It's always been about the charisma and the fun, and this still delivers that to me. Now, I actually haven't reviewed the prior gen. I owned an R56 back in the day. I reviewed that. I reviewed the R53s. So I have experience with the older ones, and this, you know, certainly is more capable. You know, the old ones, you felt like you were going faster at lower speeds, you know, so there's less of that. I think this one, you know, potentially is a little bit more of a bore at, you know, those lower speed kind of drives and just the mundane stuff. It's going to be a little less exciting. But whenever we're talking about, you know, actually spirited driving, this is fun. Yeah, this is really cool. So it's a trade-off though, you know. If you are someone who like to have fun at low speeds in your Mini, this, you know, might not be the best upgrade. But if you are someone who enjoys, you know, tearing up a back road, this is going to do it better than the old ones. But now I just put it back into the core mode. Exhaust quiets down, and you know, ride softens up a little bit here, and then it gets right back to just being a really nice, you know, upscale kind of daily driver here. But we're in this core mode, and I'm going to try and put it in this boost mode, okay? And I got 10 seconds, and let's go. Version onto this on-ramp is boost. And really nice and punchy, man. Yeah, this thing is quick. 201 horsepower, obviously on paper does not seem like much. This is definitely gonna like completely smoke like a Civic Si, or if we're comparing a comparable vehicle, Integra, you know, regular Integra, this is like, I mean, head and shoulders more dynamic. And yeah, this is quick. Don't believe the horsepower numbers. There's no way that this feels slow. JCW, I'm sure, is nice to get an extra 20 horsepower, but I'm not even sure you need it, to be completely honest. But anyway, we're out on the highway here now, so I'm going to go ahead and put on the assisted driving, which is activated here, which is a combination of adaptive cruise control system combined with the lane keep assist system here. It's doing a pretty good job here. I'm going to keep an eye on it because we do have a lot of traffic around here, but it looks like it is certainly, it's obviously a hands-on system, but it is doing, you know, a lot of the steering here for the lane centering. I'm just kind of hovering my hands on the wheel here on this gentle corner we're going around, and yeah, it's doing a really good job here of giving you that assistance. And another corner here, it's doing a pretty good job here. Okay, it did a little correction on itself there. It's a little more jittery with the steering there around that one, but it's doing a pretty good job here. And a car like this, I'm not sure how many people, you know, want to have a ton of driver assistance anyway, but okay, now it's getting a little confused. It saw that tar strip and thought that was the lane, and then it realized that the actual lane is the other line there. So it's getting a little confused here. Honestly, I'm surprised. A lot of other systems don't really do this much adjustment, so it is pretty assertive though, I gotta give it that. So as far as other safety stuff though, adaptive cruise control is standard in these now. Of course, also blind spot monitoring, all of the usual stuff is standard. Really the only stuff that's optional is again the 360 camera, the advanced park, but even like lane keep assist I believe is still standard here. So, you know, it has all your bases covered, and then, you know, having this stuff, if you do plan to do long highway drives here, certainly nice to have, you know, the steering assist and all that as well. Fuel economy for the Cooper S here is 28 mpg in the city, 39 on the highway, and 32 combined. Those are certainly impressive numbers there as far as the ratings go. In my driving here so far, just racing around, I'm getting about 23.5 mpg so far just during this review here. Again, enjoying that performance and all that, and honestly, even that's not bad considering, you know, the kind of driving I was doing there. And after I filmed this review, I actually drove this car from Pittsburgh to New York City, and during that highway drive, my average was an incredible 44.8 mpg, overperforming the EPA highway rating by nearly 6 mpg, and showing that not only does BMW like to underrate on power, but also possibly fuel economy as well. Something this fun and this fast, managing 45 mpg on the highway, is impressive and should make the Mini pretty economical to own if you take it easy. And then the last thing to mention here is the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So as far as pricing for these, so for Cooper S, it starts just over $33,000, which is lower than some of the other sportier stuff and premium stuff in this segment. And then this one, as tested, is right around $39,500. And yes, you know, you might say for 200 horsepower, 39 grand steep, and you know, if you're looking for the best performance possible, I mean, you can get a GR Corolla with all-wheel drive, with a manual, or a very, very quick automatic. You can get one of those things for the starting base one. Doesn't have the same equipment as this, but I mean, those are $40,000 as well. So, you know, this isn't going to be a performance bargain or anything, but, you know, it does stack up pretty well whenever you compare it to its other competitors. But first, if you are looking for the best price possible and you are shopping for a Cooper S here, you're definitely going to want to head over to mattmotoring.com. There you click on the new car quotes page, and that'll take you to a little forum there where you can fill out for the Cooper S there and get access to dealer invoice pricing, as well as getting connected to a local dealer where you can take one of these for a test drive and see what you think about the Cooper S. So there's going to be a link in the description as well as a link in a pinned comment to take you straight to that site so you can get that information. But as far as how it compares to the actual competitors in this segment, I think the first one that a lot of people are going to be thinking about is going to be the Volkswagen GTI. The GTI gives you 241 horsepower, so 20 more than this, and it does it for about the same price. You also get the extra practicality of a usable back seat, you know, a slightly larger hatch, and so, you know, that's really going to be the toughest one. Now, obviously, I don't think GTI has the same charm as this. I think, believe it or not, I actually like this infotainment system better than the GTIs as well. But, you know, just the character and the personality are really why I think I'm not going to spend too much time on the competition, because I think most Mini buyers probably don't cross-shop a whole lot, but, you know, just know that you can get a GTI. It's a slightly better value, you know, more practical and all that, but, you know, not as much fun, I think, as far as all the whimsical stuff goes. But a very good car nonetheless. I've enjoyed my, you know, time having a GTI for a week. Haven't driven the brand new 2025 one, which also has lost its manual for 25, but, you know, I'm sure it's going to be a very nice vehicle and feels probably similarly fast to this. Honestly, these feel pretty comparable, even though, again, on paper they're not. I think this feels about GTI quick to me personally. But anyway, there's also Integra. If you know, are fine with 201 horsepower, the Integra gives you the manual. That also comes in, you know, right under 40 grand for that A-Spec, that fully loaded manual version of the Integra. That does give you some nice stuff. Gives you the limited slip diff there in those, the adaptive dampers and all that. But, you know, I think Integra also just not quite as whimsical. Still a very good car. Has a much bigger hatch, really nice big usable back seat, so easy to live with. But, you know, again, just not quite as fun, and also not quite as premium. You know, that shares a lot with the Civic. This feels, you know, like a BMW, so it does have a little bit of a higher caliber kind of feel to it. And then beyond that, though, you know, it really comes down to how serious you are about performance, because you can get Elantra N for $35,500 with a manual, 37 grand with a dual clutch. That has, you know, the same kind of stuff of, you know, heated seats and, you know, all the other stuff, but it has adaptive dampers, active exhaust, has, you know, really impressive handling, performance, and 276 horsepower for the same or less money here than these. You know, so if you're really serious about performance, that's going to be clearly the value winner. That's hands down the best performance value still these days. So that's hard to argue with. You also can get bona fide real sports cars if you're looking for a sporty two-door experience with the Toyota GR86, Subaru BRZ, and the Mazda Miata. All of those, again, kind of start right around 30 grand like this, and, you know, go through into, you know, the mid to high 30s. Also, you know, a more intense experience. They all, you know, Miata's got a little less horsepower, but, you know, high revving. They all are offered with a manual still. And in the GR86 and BRZ's case, give you more horsepower as well. Fantastic cars. Obviously a different kind of beast, being rear-wheel drive and all that. And I'd say this has a more usable back seat slightly as well. But regardless, you know, same money, a real sports car experience. If you're someone who does, you know, love the terrible back road, I'd rather do it in a GR86 or a Miata than this, as much fun as this is. And then, you know, really the last one to mention is, you know, the wild card of we are having a new Honda Prelude coming here by the end of 2025, and that, you know, is probably going to be a hybrid, is probably going to have, you know, based on the time we're filming this year, about the same kind of performance as a Civic hybrid. Should be similar as far as 0 to 60 times compared to this. You know, is another new two-door on the scene that, you know, might be, you know, interesting, especially for those who maybe want even a little bit better fuel economy than this, and, you know, want that cool coupe styling. You know, that is a really cool option as well. But overall, really love the Mini here. They did a really good job in the driving department. I think the styling is fantastic. I like the interior styling in many ways. Just, again, wish there was a few little tweaks to how they package this interior. You know, a few little tweaks to the infotainment, and I think they're golden here. Although I would still like, you know, the return of the manual transmission and the return of a real gauge cluster someday. But, you know, even if I, you know, have to deal with the head-up display, I'd just love to have a manual. I think hopefully with, you know, other companies kind of reconsidering that, I think hopefully we'll get a manual back someday. We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, you know, really love this even the way it is. So anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the Cooper S. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Mini for providing me here with this vehicle to review for you guys today. Yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.